Hey everybody, it's Bob Crossan, Senior Managing Editor for Water and Waste Digest. Today I have with me a great guest. His name is Eric Thornburg. He's the President and CEO of SJW Group, and we're going to talk about cybersecurity in the water sector. So Eric, thank you so much for being here and being on the call. We really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you, Bob. It's great to be here. It's a real privilege and look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, so let's start first by just giving some context here. Could you talk a little bit about SJW Group and what you do?
Absolutely. Yes. It's really my honor to lead SJW Group. We're a water utility that serves really nationwide. We serve 1.5 million customers from California to Maine. And our largest service area is in the Silicon Valley, the 10th largest city in the United States. That's San Jose. But then we also serve small and medium sized communities in the states of Texas, Connecticut, and Maine. And so it's a really unique service area, kind of a bi-coastal setup. And so it gives us some real unique perspectives. But we look and feel like most other water utilities out there, small, medium-sized communities, working together. So it's a real great honor to serve with SJW Group, a company that's been in business for over 155 years.
Oh my gosh, what a track record.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, so the reason we wanted to talk to you today is about cybersecurity. You're recently got to talk a little bit about this with the presidential administration, actually. Could you talk a little bit about what some of the common cybersecurity threats are out there for water and wastewater?
At first, it was a great honor to be invited to the White House with other CEOs from critical infrastructure organizations. And I was so delighted that the president and his administration was interested in water and kind of the unique issues there. If you think about water, it touches everything that we care about. It provides for public health, public safety, economic development, and of course, the natural beauty of water and the environment. So what's unique about water compared to other utilities, of course, is that we're small and fragmented. There's some 50,000 water systems across the country. So a cyber attack couldn't bring down the water grid per se, but because we're small and so fragmented, the attack surface is different. So somebody who wanted to approach a utility in any state in the country, that company is probably small, maybe has one or two IT professionals on staff, if that's it. And so I think some of the challenges we face are in how do we defend ourselves as an industry that's primarily made up of small and medium-sized utilities.
Mhm. Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up, and I've never thought about it that way, that because there's so many small utilities and medium-sized utilities out there, that almost is protection in and of itself from a national perspective. I've never thought of it that way.
It is, and yet what I was able to share with the administration is think about the impact on society if we had 10 water systems coast to coast that suddenly were not able to provide safe drinking water to their communities because of a cyber attack. There's nothing more iconic than that small mid-sized community in the United States with its water tower with the town's name on it. What an and safe drinking water is a national heritage of the United States. You go to other countries, and most of them, you really have to think twice before you drink the water. And yet here, you drive coast to coast, and you don't really have to ever think about it. So I think it would have a profound effect. And so, water supply equals public safety, public health, and therefore, it really is a national defense priority.
Yeah, well, as I say, water is life. You can't really have life without it. So,
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
um, so what do you see as the most vulnerable parts of facilities in water and wastewater systems?
What we shared was that because of the small nature of our industry, that there's some real basic things that need to be emphasized. And the first of that is we strongly think that oversight of cybersecurity in the United States, as it is focused on water utilities and wastewater utilities, it really needs to reside with the Department of Homeland Security. Currently, when we all fill out our vulnerability assessments, we send that to EPA. But that vulnerability assessment is not limited, of course, to cyber. In fact, that's just a small portion of that assessment. And so, that goes to EPA, and that's not really their core mission, national defense. And so we advocated for oversight by Homeland Security when it comes to cyber defenses for utilities. And there's some basic steps, right? And they're not terribly expensive, but good cyber hygiene includes, password, diligence and employee training and education, and also an inventory of the systems that you have and separation of your operating systems from the internet. The last thing you want is your SCADA system, the control system of your water treatment plant connected to the internet. I remember, it's about 5 or 6 years ago, we bought a small system, and the operators there were very proud of the fact that they could make treatment changes remotely with their iPhone. Of course, that was tremendously convenient, and maybe water systems across the country, some still have that. But if you think about it, that was an attack surface for somebody on the internet who could have accessed that treatment plant. So, we made the changes there so that in effect, we were segregating the operating systems from the information systems. So those are some very basic things that we can do as an industry. Bob, I also think we got to do a better job of mutual aid and collaboration. Because we're fragmented, we can come together and help each other, just like we do in times of flood, storms, and et cetera. Being able to assist one another, share best practices, share intelligence and information. The water industry needs to do better at that. I was really struck by how effective the electric utilities, gas utilities, the banking industry, how collaborative they are. And that's at the CEO, the chief executive level, those companies. They get together and talk about cyber threats and how they're addressing them. There's no similar organization that I am aware of for water or wastewater utilities for us to easily share that information. So advocated for that as well. We want to see more of that.
Yeah, collaboration is so critical. I would imagine, I mean, collaboration was a critical part of, say, Texas back in February when they had the electric issues that they were having with the grid going down. There was collaboration between those utilities to like, hey, do you have water that you can send to us? Like it actually happened, and it was so useful and critical for them.
Absolutely was. And in fact, my utility in Texas, we lost service to the majority of our customers because of leakage throughout the system. Customer service is, broke and ruptured. We just kind of bled out. So, we were relying on our neighbors for some help. And likewise, we were helping our neighbors when we were back on our feet. So we had that heritage, but, to my knowledge, it's not worked as well in the area of cyber. And so my organization, what we're prepared to do is we want to share best practices with our neighbors. And so, we're going to do that through AWWA and other organizations like that to share. Here's what, here are the top 10 things you can do to help protect your utility and get the message out and then offer assistance and sort of a consultative type of an approach. And you see that with the electric utilities. The big electric utilities are helping the co-ops and the small municipal utilities around them because they have that bandwidth. And so I think we have that knack in our space, but we just haven't done much in the area of cyber yet.
Yeah, just extend that conversation a little bit further.
Exactly.
Yeah. So could
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about how San Jose Water, or SJW Water, regardless of location, how you guys approach cybersecurity? Does that change at all region to region, or is it kind of best practices is universal?
Yeah, you know what? It's continually evolving, right? I mean, we're recognizing the threat level is rising all the time, the sophistication of attackers. And from an industry standpoint, that is the case. And so I think it's very important that myself as CEO, I have accountability for that. And that's one of the other items I recommended. And as well, Walter Lynch, the CEO of American Water, we spoke as one voice and said that the accountability has to increase as well. so that whether your community, it's whether the mayor is ultimately in charge of the water utility, or the board chair for the rural water district, or the CEO of a public company such as mine, I'm the one who should accept the responsibility to make sure my team, my organization has the resources to address this threat, and that we should report on that. So we advocated as well for, a cyber defense plan that utilities would complete, and that they would submit on perhaps as often as an annual basis to Homeland Security, and that then the best practices and the gaps, would be, would be identified and those best practices shared. So I don't like the fact that too many of our operators, these certified operators for our industry, are the ones having to sign off on these reports, when it really should be more the executive in charge of the business or the utility. And I think with that would come the resources and focus that all the utilities need to get this right. It is an evolving threat, and what we're doing today, Bob, of course, 6 months from now may not be enough. But there are tremendous resources out there. There's various cyber defense maturity models that you can just basically go through the questionnaire and answer it truthfully, and it will show you the areas that you need to get better at, or you've already got it aced. And then you just make it a journey. Make improvements every year. Get a little better in this area this year, and maybe training employees the next. So that's what I would really advocate, is that you look at it as a journey. Start with a basic assessment of where you are today, and then set some reasonable goals. And over time, you'll make real progress, and you'll lower the risk to your community and your employees by doing so.
Yeah, I feel like that's such good advice for practically everything in the water industry.
Yeah.
It's like, just make it a journey, take small steps to get there, and then like 3, 4, 5, 10 years from now, whatever it takes you, you're there.
Right. You
Like,
make great progress. Absolutely. No, that's
yeah.
right. Because it can appear overwhelming. But if folks listening to this would even go to the EPA website or Department of Homeland Security, there are, the top 10 best practices in cybersecurity for water utilities. And you can even start there, just do a quick assessment. Um, remember the day when you go to a trade show, go to AWWA or WEFTEC, and all the vendors had their stuff laid out, and you could pick up those little memory sticks. Remember that? You'd go back and you'd plug it into your computer in your office. You can't do that anymore. You never know what virus, what bug, what hostile program might be on that memory stick. So you teach all your employees, guess what, folks? We can't do that anymore. That's a great first step, right? You've already lowered the risk with a very simple bit of education for your people. And so as an industry, we can really make progress quick, I believe, by just taking some very basic steps early and then continuing that journey.
Yeah, and educating, that's like such a critical part of this. It's like that's something that's so small, but it's just a matter of education. It's not a big hurdle to clear.
It's right. And we've committed to, having routine cybersecurity training programs for employees. We send out emails. We will test our employees. We'll send out an email that's an internal phishing attempt, and we'll see how many employees click the link. And then if they do, they're not reprimanded or disciplined. We then educate them, give some additional training so that they don't do that in the future. Because the main entry for most cyber breaches is through social engineering, where an employee who means well and wants to be responsive, gets an email from, accounting. Hey, send us your password because we've got to reset this, accounts payable link or something. And a well-meaning employee, gets duped into that, and then all of a sudden, your systems are compromised. So we've got to teach our folks how to protect the cyber infrastructure, just like we do protecting the drinking water, protecting their fellow employees. It's just part of the industry, and that's what we need to do.
Yeah. So you had alluded to this a little bit earlier about kind of the federal role in resiliency to cybersecurity of like having Department of Homeland Security being getting these reports and whatnot. Are there other roles that you see the federal government could take in this regard, and how does that differ from the state's role, for example?
Yeah. So I think the federal government can do really good work with information and intelligence sharing. If you get the utilities, we're working collaboratively together, but we don't know what those threats are. What's really happening now, I might read the threat in the newspaper, and then the next day we'll get something, from the federal government through some of the coordinating councils that are out there. So we need to be hearing of those things before the event while honoring the security needs of the nation. So I think Homeland Security, federal government can get to work on that and work with the utility industry, the critical infrastructure of the nation, and we can facilitate the sharing of that information and intelligence and best practices. I think the feds can also really help on the sort of the putting together all of the critical infrastructure components and having information sharing across those silos. You don't want electrics doing and then water and gas and pipelines and banking all operating separately. You need to be sharing that information. Well, if you think about cryptocurrency, Bob, right now that is the sort of part of the fuel of this great challenge, right? Because right now most of it is sort of economic in nature, but it also can be the segue to a national defense or an attack from a foreign power. So this cybersecurity and cryptocurrencies, there's some need for some additional oversight in the cryptocurrency because these ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure, that can be used as almost like an advance, you know, effort to understand your vulnerabilities. So I think feds can work there. Nothing like on the state level, really getting all the local utilities together because we're only as strong as the weakest link and working together. And state of Connecticut, the Public Utility Regulatory Authority there, for a number of years has been bringing together the major utilities in the state, sharing best practices, having these discussions. And I know as sure as I'm sitting here that we're all better for that just over the last, 3 to 5 years of working together like that.
Hmm. I really like this idea of breaking down the silos. I'm a firm believer, at least in the water industry too, to break down some silos for that one water mentality. But breaking down the
Absolutely.
utility silos for a cyber threat idea aspect is actually a really smart way because, like you said, that there are utility industries that are just far more advanced currently than the water industry is in this space. So being able to leverage that knowledge would be amazing. That'd be really vital.
Yeah, you think about Bob, a major electric utility that's been protecting its nuclear reactors for the last 20 years from cyber attacks. Think of that information sharing that could be, not obviously giving away secrets, but sharing their experiences, what's worked, what's not, and we could really jumpstart the water space and our capacity in this area just by understanding what the electric utilities have long since experienced and overcome. So one of the really great outcomes from my perspective, the electric CEOs that were there was Tom Fanning from the Southern Company and Patty Pop from PG&E here on the West Coast, and then Lynn Good from Duke Energy. And they were great. They recognized, wow, water needs to be at the table, just alongside of electric and gas and banking and pipelines need to be at the table. And so that was a really profound, moment when they all said, yes, we need the water industry here with us at the table. So, really looking forward to engaging with them on this.
Mhm. Well, it's been very enlightening to talk to you today, so I appreciate you taking the time. And for everyone who's watching, you can learn some more about this in the description. We have a link to some resources for you, so check that out for sure. And Eric, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. Like I said, I feel like I learned quite a bit here, even though it was rather high level.
Thank you, Bob. And I just want to, my message to all the water operators out there, our industry is just one to be honored. We do great things for our nation. And so what I heard from the administration was that they want to meet us where we are and really offer that support and guidance and oversight as well, so that we improve the defenses of our nation. So Bob, thanks for giving me a chance to talk about it.
Of course.